Hey, welcome back to AJ's Garage. It's been a day or two since I removed the HVAC and the rest of the interior of the car, and something pretty exciting came in, at least exciting for me, is we got a Sparco race seat and the brackets. I've never owned a Sparco seat. I've never owned a race seat, to be honest. I'm pretty excited. This is something I've always wanted to do, so I'm looking forward to getting this thing in. Let's take a look. So there's our seat. Obviously it's just sitting there right now. So I did do an initial kind of look. This is where the driver's seat sat. So I kind of put it in here just to see how it sat mocked up. That bolt hole, that bolt hole, this bolt hole, and this one are where the factory seat bolted in. Now, I don't know if you can tell on the video. We'll see if we can. Yes. But this part where the front of the seat bolted in is significantly higher than where the rear of the seat bolted in. So again, rear, front. I don't know how well it's going to come across on camera, but when I stuck my angle gauge on there, actually we'll do that to show you the angle of what I'm talking about here. So here I have an angle gauge. So as you can see, right as this bar sits, it's almost 7 degrees leaning this way, so towards the back. So the front side is up. If you come here, this is the door sill and part of the frame of the car. We're at about 1/2 degree. So that tells me that the car sits about 1/2 degree to the rear. Now that could be partly the garage floor. Actually, I haven't even measured that. So yeah, we're at 0.2 on the garage floor. So the car's nearly level. It's probably 0.3 degrees from being level. But you can see this bar is leaned back about 7 degrees. And then if we take this piece of iron and basically run it from the rear bolt to this bracket, I don't know if you can see that, we're at 11, just over 11 degrees. Now, we do want the seat leaned back a little bit. I was looking into it. So generally you want the seat leaned back a little, A, because it's more comfortable, and B, in the event of a crash or an accident, having the seat leaned back a little, you actually go into the seat bottom a little bit instead of just all your weight going away from the seat back. Oh gosh, there's a spider. Sorry about that. So we do want some lean back. What I'm debating is, because we got side mounted seat brackets. So let's get this up here. All right. So if we look at the side mounted seat brackets, you can see there's 4 slots vertically on front and rear, which means you can adjust the entire seat up and down and also angle it, because you have these slotted holes and then these regular holes. So I'm thinking what I'm probably gonna do is remove this bar. You can see, so you got a spot weld right there, another one right there. You basically got spot welds. This thing is just a stamped piece of metal that was then spot welded onto the floor and the chassis of the car. Same with this rear one. It's spot welded around the perimeter. However, this one, I believe, was formed into the body. And then I'm guessing based off these spot welds, the piece of metal that was actually threaded, like there's probably a thicker piece of metal that they put the threaded insert in, was then spot welded to the bottom of this. I debated just cutting this down to a height that would roughly match these rear ones. But then I thought that might still be a lot of work, just because you're going to have a cut, you're going to have lots of paint that you got to scrape off on both sides, inside and out. And then I'm going to have to create a new piece of metal to go across this that's going to be strong and have nuts welded to the bottom of it, and then weld it in place. And I thought, you know what, I don't know if it's easier, but it might be just as much work, or it might not be a ton more work, to just completely remove this piece, and then I'll figure out a solution. I'm not sure if I'm going to use some square rectangular tubing or flat bar stock to create a new mount. The other benefit, if I do that, is I can weld it along the length of the body in more places than just front and rear. And that way the mount the seat is on is secured to the body of the vehicle, more so than just being bolted front and rear. That way the mount is welded, probably stitch weld or something, front and rear. Now I know full race car, what you want to do is actually mount the seat to the roll bar and not the chassis, so that in the event of an accident and the chassis moves, the seat moves with the roll bar and not separate from the chassis. We don't have to worry about that because our roll bar is not extensive enough to mount a seat to. Like, we're just going to have one part of our main hoop probably back here behind the seat go up, and then there's going to be a harness bar and a crossbar, I forget what it's called, but a harness bar. And so there's not going to be any roll cage support around this part of the floor. That's basically my thought on it. Let me know if that's stupid or not, but I think it'll be probably better in the long term just to completely remove this, possibly remove this and cut this out, and then just make my own floor mount using bar stock and trying to level everything. Because as it sits right now, the seat actually doesn't sit level on this. So another thing we can look at is, you can see we're at about one, actually get off the car, so we're about 1 degree right there. And then if we put it back here, we're at about 1 degree. So there's about a 1 degree cant there. If we put this bar across, we have almost 0, it's 0.1 degrees. So there's a 0.9 degree difference between the body and the height of these two, which again makes me think it might just be easier to remove them and then make all this stuff myself. Plus, it's a chance to fabricate more, which never a bad thing. You're always gonna learn something. What do you say? Let's do the hard, difficult route. Let's get started on it. Also, before I start welding these drilling out the spot welds, a trick for drilling metal: go slow with the drill bit. Some oil helps. I'm not going to use oil in this case, but go slow, high pressure. So kind of the opposite of wood, but if you go slow and apply a lot of pressure, you're actually not going to cause nearly as much friction on your drill bit, and your drill bit will last longer because it's not going to be getting super hot. So just control that drill speed. Hey, it's pretty early right now. I woke up earlier than I wanted to, but I figured I got a little time, might as well work on the car a little bit. Let's get to pulling this seat bracket out. I didn't film all of it, but I drilled out most of the ones on this side. They should be loose. I gotta get these few on this side fully drilled out, and then kind of finish this side, and then she's gonna be ready to pop. You can also see right here, I don't know if you can actually see by how dark it is, but I actually punched through the floor right there a little bit, so a little whoopsie daisy, but we'll get that cleared out. It'll be too easy. We'll either weld it up or cover it, then possibly weld it. It doesn't really matter. That's not a big issue. After more work than I was hoping, we finally got the factory seat support brackets out. At least the ones that were spot welded in. Let's take a look. So as you can see, a couple of these holes I drilled straight through the body. So if we come out a little bit. So this area right here is a factory chassis, like frame rail that runs along the length of the body, and then we basically just have a bunch of holes and stuff that we got to deal with. But this is where this factory seat bracket was, and then we have this one right here, which again, same thing. So we drilled out a bunch of the spot welds, got them out. Now basically what I'm going to do is I've got some 1x3 rectangular tube. I think what I'm going to do is try and fit it right into this spot right here along this section, welding it to the frame rail. It kind of drops off a little bit here, but we'll see what we can do, and then basically weld it against this wall to the frame rail, over on this side, and against this wall. And if I can, I'll weld it to the body here, but this is just thin sheet metal. It's not terribly structural, and as long as we have the frame rail welded over top of this frame rail, and then into this side and into this side, and then over here as well, I think that'll be plenty strong. We'll see what it looks like when we actually get it in. Then make sure it's level, and then once I'm not actually going to weld it in, but as soon as I get it fitted in here properly, we're going to see what the angle looks like coming off this backside, because this portion right here I'm going to have to cut out. And if I cut that out, that means I'm going to have to make a patch panel and weld that in.